The 1970s gave us some of the most memorable melodies ever recorded. Songs that still make you tap your feet and hum along decades later. But behind those catchy hooks and familiar choruses lie stories that might surprise you. Stories of tragedy, obsession, and darkness that the artists never meant for casual listeners to discover. So today, we're pulling back the curtain on 10 darkest secrets behind 70s classic songs. Number 10, Delilah by Tom Jones.
I saw the light on the night that I passed by her window.
Tom Jones made this song his signature tune in 1968, carrying its popularity well into the 70s with countless television performances and concert appearances. If you watched variety shows during that era, you saw Jones perform this song with his characteristic hip movements and passionate delivery. Audiences loved its Middle Eastern-influenced melody and the way Jones could make his voice soar during the climactic moments. The reality is much darker. The song tells the story of a man driven to madness by his lover's infidelity, ultimately leading to murder. The narrator watches through a window as Delilah betrays him with another man, and in a fit of rage, kills her. The writer, Les Reed, drew inspiration from the biblical story of Samson and Delilah, but relocated the tale to a contemporary setting where jealousy and passion could turn deadly in an instant. The irony wasn't lost on those who knew Tom Jones personally. His own marriage was marked by numerous affairs and infidelities. Yet here he was, singing about a man who couldn't tolerate unfaithfulness. Jones later admitted that performing the song sometimes felt uncomfortably personal, as if he were confronting his own demons on stage, night after night. The song's upbeat tempo and Jones's charismatic delivery masked its violent narrative so effectively that it became a stadium anthem. Crowds would sing along enthusiastically, never quite processing that they were celebrating a tale of domestic violence and murder. Even today, the song appears at sporting events and celebrations, its dark message completely overshadowed by its infectious energy.
I could see that girl.
Number 9, The Night Chicago Died by Paper Lace.
On the east side of Chicago, back in the USA.
This British band's 1974 hit painted a vivid picture of 1930s Chicago, complete with gangsters, shootouts, and Al Capone. The song reached number 1 in the United States, and its cinematic storytelling captivated listeners who imagined themselves in the middle of a Hollywood crime drama.
When a man named Al Capone tried to make that town his own.
But the song's historical backdrop wasn't chosen for dramatic effect alone. It reflected real anxieties about urban violence that were very much alive in the mid-70s. Chicago was experiencing one of its most violent periods, with gang warfare and police corruption making headlines daily. The song's nostalgic treatment of organized crime struck some as romanticizing a brutal reality that was still claiming lives.
I heard my mama cry. I heard her pray the night.
The band later admitted they had never even visited Chicago when they wrote the song. They crafted their narrative from old movies and newspaper clippings, creating what was essentially historical fiction set to music. Yet their portrayal of violence as entertainment touched a nerve with critics who saw it as trivializing real suffering.
Town of Chicago died.
Number 8, Seasons in the Sun by Terry Jacks.
Goodbye to you, my trusted friend.
Terry Jacks transformed Jacques Brel's Belgian song Le Moribond into a gentle, folk-tinged ballad that dominated radio in 1974. Its simple melody and peaceful delivery made it perfect for easy listening stations, and many assumed it was about saying goodbye to old friends before moving away.
And all the birds are singing in the sky.
The song is actually a dying man's farewell to the people he loves most. The narrator is terminally ill, using his final moments to address his father, his best friend, and his wife. Each verse represents another goodbye, another relationship he must leave behind. The seasons in the sun refers to the good times he'll never experience again.
Goodbye, Papa, please pray for me.
What makes this particularly haunting is how Jax's soft vocals and the song's major key progression disguise the devastating subject matter. The Canadian singer-songwriter had originally intended to give the song to the Beach Boys, but when they passed on it, he decided to record it himself. His gentle approach transformed what could have been a dramatic ballad into something that sounded almost lullaby-like.
Much wine and too much song, wonder how I got along. Goodbye.
Radio programmers loved its gentle sound, playing it during afternoon drive time when listeners wanted something soothing. Families would hear it during dinner, children would sing along in the back seat, all while absorbing a meditation on mortality. The song became particularly popular at graduation ceremonies and farewell parties, where its theme of saying goodbye felt appropriate, though few realized they were essentially playing a funeral song.
The hills that we climbed were just seasons out of time.
Jax later revealed that he was going through his own difficult period when he recorded the song, dealing with the end of his time with the Poppy family and uncertainty about his solo career. The song's themes of farewell and finality resonated with his own sense of endings, making his performance feel especially authentic and emotionally raw.
Goodbye, Michelle, my little one.
Number 7. Alone Again, Naturally, by Gilbert O'Sullivan.
Standing in the lodge at a church where people say.
Gilbert O'Sullivan's 1972 hit began the decade with a deceptively cheerful piano melody that suggested optimism and renewal. The Irish singer-songwriter's gentle voice and the song's bouncing rhythm made it feel like a celebration of independence, perfect for anyone starting fresh after a difficult period.
My God, that's tough, she stood him up, no point in us remaining.
The opening verse reveals the song's true nature immediately. The narrator contemplates suicide after being abandoned at the altar, planning to throw himself from a tower. What follows is a devastating inventory of loss: his father's death, his mother's grief, and his own profound isolation. The title phrase, "Alone Again, Naturally," becomes a resigned acceptance of abandonment as life's default state.
Alone again, naturally.
O'Sullivan's masterful songwriting lies in how he matches this bleak narrative with an almost jaunty musical arrangement. The piano dances while the singer describes despair, creating a cognitive dissonance that makes the sadness even more poignant. It's as if the music is trying to cheer up someone who can't be consoled. The Irish singer-songwriter wrote the song during a particularly dark period in his life, when he was struggling with the music industry and feeling isolated despite his growing success. He later explained that the song came from a very real place of despair, though he was careful to emphasize that he never actually contemplated suicide.
It was cheerful, bright and gay, looking forward to.
The song spent 6 weeks at number 1, making it one of the year's biggest hits. Radio listeners found themselves humming along to lyrics about suicide and depression, often without fully processing the words. It became a perfect example of how popular music could smuggle difficult emotions into mainstream consciousness, reaching people who might otherwise avoid confronting such heavy themes.
Looking back over the years, whatever else that appeared.
What made the song even more unsettling was O'Sullivan's boyish appearance and gentle demeanor, which seemed completely at odds with the mature themes he was exploring. Here was someone who looked barely out of his teens, singing about life's deepest disappointments with the wisdom of someone much older.
Alone again, naturally.
Number 6. Killing Me Softly with His Song, by Roberta Flack.
Drumming my pain with his fingers.
Roberta Flack's 1973 masterpiece felt intimate and mysterious, describing a woman's overwhelming emotional response to hearing a musician perform. The song's jazz-influenced arrangement and Flack's nuanced vocals suggested romance and artistic awakening, making it a favorite for quiet moments and slow dances.
Singing my life with his words. Killing.
The song originated from co-writer Lori Lieberman's experience seeing Don McLean perform American Pie in concert. She felt as though McLean was singing directly about her life, exposing her most private thoughts to a room full of strangers. The title refers to this sensation of emotional vulnerability, feeling stripped bare by someone else's art.
Killing me softly with his song, telling my...
But the darkness lies in what this experience represents. The narrator describes feeling stalked by the performer's insights, as if he had been watching her secret moments and broadcasting them to the world. There's an element of violation in having one's inner life exposed so publicly, even when that exposure comes through beautiful music.
I felt all flushed with fever in bed.
Flack's interpretation deepened these themes. Her extended phrasing and strategic pauses created an almost hypnotic effect, drawing listeners into the narrator's psychological state. The jazz-trained singer understood how to use space and silence as powerfully as she used her voice, creating moments of vulnerability that felt almost uncomfortable in their intimacy.
Telling my whole life with his words, killing me.
The song became a meditation on how art can make us feel simultaneously seen and exposed, understood and invaded. Flack's version particularly emphasized the psychological complexity of the experience. The narrator is both grateful for feeling understood and disturbed by feeling so transparent.
I prayed that he would finish, but he...
The recording process itself was notably intense, with Flack spending considerable time perfecting each phrase to capture the exact emotional nuance she wanted. Her perfectionism paid off, creating a performance that felt both effortless and deeply deliberate, casual and profound.
Strumming my bed with his fingers, singing.
Number 5. American Pie by Don McLean.
Long, long time ago, I can still remember.
Don McLean's 8.5-minute epic defined 1971 and continued influencing culture throughout the 70s. Its cryptic references to rock and roll history made it feel like a puzzle worth solving, with fans spending hours debating the meaning of lines about jesters, kings, and queens.
When the jester sang for the king and queen in a coat.
The song is framed by the 1959 plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper, the day the music died. But beyond this tragic foundation, McLean packed the lyrics with references to the cultural and political upheaval of the 1960s.
I started singing, bye, bye, Miss American Pie.
The darkness goes beyond nostalgia for lost innocence. McLean was documenting the death of optimism itself, the moment when American culture realized that progress wasn't inevitable, and that good people could be destroyed by forces beyond their control. The plane crash becomes a metaphor for everything else that had been lost: the Kennedy assassinations, Vietnam, the violence at Altamont.
We were singing, bye, bye, Miss American Pie.
Each verse moves further from the hopeful 50s into the chaotic 60s, with McLean serving as both chronicler and mourner. The song's length allows him to build an emotional arc that mirrors the decade's trajectory from hope to disillusionment. By the end, he's not just singing about dead musicians, he's eulogizing an entire era's faith in the future.
Helter skelter in the summer swelter, the bird.
McLean spent nearly 2 years writing the song, working on it in various forms before finding the right structure and tone. He was particularly meticulous about the historical references, wanting to create something that would serve as both entertainment and historical document. The result was popular music's most elaborate time capsule, preserving not just events, but emotions from a transformative period in American culture.
And they were singing, bye, bye.
The mystery surrounding many of the song's references has kept listeners engaged for over 50 years. But that engagement often obscures the profound sadness at its core. McLean created what may be popular music's most elaborate funeral song, disguised as a catchy sing-along. The fact that it inspired countless cover versions and parodies only emphasizes how successfully he buried the grief beneath an irresistible melody.
The Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Number 4. The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia by Vicki Lawrence.
2 weeks gone and he thought he'd stop at Webb's and had...
Vicki Lawrence, known primarily as a comedian on The Carol Burnett Show, surprised everyone with this 1973 hit that showcased her dramatic range. The song's country rock arrangement and Lawrence's committed vocal performance made it feel like a radio-friendly story song. perfect for audiences who enjoyed narrative ballads.
That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia.
The story unfolds like a Southern Gothic novel compressed into 4 minutes. A man returns home to find his wife with another man, leading to a confrontation that ends in multiple deaths. The narrator, revealed to be the man's sister, has been watching these events unfold with intimate knowledge of everyone involved.
But your young bride ain't home tonight. Since you've been gone, she's been sick.
What makes this truly dark is the sister's role in the tragedy. She's not just a witness, but an active participant, and her final revelation suggests she may have orchestrated some of the violence. The song presents a community where justice comes through vigilante action, where family loyalty trumps legal process, and where women can be just as violent as men.
Brother thought his wife must have left town, so he went home and finally.
The song was actually written by Bobby Russell, who crafted it as a deliberately ambiguous narrative that would keep listeners guessing about the true sequence of events. Russell understood that mystery was more compelling than clarity, and he structured the story to reward multiple listens as audiences picked up details they'd missed before.
That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia.
Lawrence's background in comedy made her dramatic turn even more unsettling. Audiences weren't prepared for the actress who made them laugh on television to deliver such a chilling performance. The contrast between her public persona and the song's violent narrative created an additional layer of discomfort.
He looked through the screen at the back porch door, and he saw Andy lie.
The song's success also revealed something about 70s audiences' appetite for darker entertainment. This was the same era that made hits out of movies like The Godfather and Bonnie and Clyde, suggesting that Americans were ready to embrace stories that acknowledged the violence lurking beneath civilized surfaces.
That's the night that they hung an innocent man.
Number 3. Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen's 1975 opus,
She's killed a man.
redefined what a popular song could be, combining opera, rock, and ballad styles into a 6-minute journey that defied radio conventions. Freddie Mercury's theatrical vocals and the band's ambitious arrangements made it feel like a grand statement about artistic freedom and creative possibility.
I'm not back again this time tomorrow.
Mercury never fully explained the song's meaning, but its structure suggests a man's psychological breakdown following a confession of murder. The gentle opening becomes an operatic trial scene, followed by a hard rock explosion of guilt and defiance. The narrator moves from remorse to rage to resignation, taking listeners through the complete emotional arc of someone confronting their own capacity for violence. The darkness isn't just in the story, but in how Mercury presents it. The operatic section, with its references to Beelzebub and Bismillah, creates a supernatural courtroom where the narrator faces judgment from both divine and demonic forces. It's simultaneously silly and terrifying, reflecting the human tendency to turn serious matters into performance.
So you think you can stop me and spit my eye?
Mercury's personal struggles with identity and sexuality may have influenced the song's themes of confession and judgment. At a time when he was still largely closeted, the song became a way to explore feelings of guilt and difference through metaphor and fantasy. The theatrical nature of the piece allowed him to express emotions that might have been too dangerous to address directly.
Nothing really matters.
The band spent weeks perfecting the song's complex arrangements, with Mercury insisting on dozens of vocal overdubs to create the operatic choir effect. The result was something that sounded almost supernatural, as if multiple personalities were battling within the same voice. What makes the song particularly unsettling is how it moves between different emotional registers without warning. One moment you're listening to a gentle confession, the next, you're thrust into a manic courtroom scene, then suddenly confronted with aggressive rock that sounds like musical violence. It's popular music's most elaborate examination of conscience, disguised as an art rock showcase.
Nothing really matters to me.
Number 2. Hotel California by Eagles.
Under dark desert
The Eagles created one of rock's most enduring mysteries with this 1976 masterpiece. Its intricate guitar work and Don Henley's evocative vocals painted a picture of a luxurious but sinister destination, where travelers found themselves trapped despite their desire to leave.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
The Eagles clarified that the song is about speaking out against the greed and hedonism of the music industry in the 1970s, addressing typical issues of drugs, money, and sex. The spirit that the Hotel California hasn't had since 1969 refers to the spirit of social activism of the 1960s, and how disco and related pop music of the mid-1970s had turned away from it. But the song's power comes from how it transforms industry criticism into gothic horror. The hotel becomes a trap for anyone seeking the American dream, particularly artists who traded their integrity for commercial success. The luxury masks spiritual emptiness, the party conceals desperation, and the apparent freedom reveals itself as elaborate imprisonment. The Eagles were drawing from their own experiences in the music business, watching colleagues succumb to the excesses that success made possible. The band had witnessed talented musicians destroy themselves with drugs and alcohol, all while living in mansions and driving expensive cars. The song became their way of warning others about the hidden costs of fame. The famous final lines about checking out but never leaving capture something profound about addiction, whether to drugs, fame, or lifestyle choices that seem appealing, but become inescapable. The song suggests that certain kinds of success are actually forms of damnation, beautiful on the surface, but corrupting at their core.
You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
The recording process took place at the Criteria Studios in Miami, where the band worked obsessively on perfecting the song's atmosphere. Don Felder's guitar work and Don Henley's vocals were crafted to create an almost cinematic experience, making listeners feel as though they were actually walking through the hotel's corridors.
We are all just prisoners here of our own.
The mystery surrounding specific references has kept the song culturally relevant, but its real achievement is how it uses one fictional location to examine broader questions about American values and the cost of pursuing them.
Last thing I remember, I was running for the door.
Number 1. Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin.
Lady, sure, all that returns.
Led Zeppelin's 1971 epic stands as perhaps the most beloved rock song ever recorded. Its journey from gentle acoustic beginning to thunderous climax made it feel like a spiritual experience, with Robert Plant's mystical imagery suggesting transcendence and enlightenment.
And she's buying a stairway.
The darkness lies not in the narrative, but in what inspired it. The song draws heavily from occult philosophy and esoteric traditions that fascinated Plant and Jimmy Page during this period. The guitarist had become deeply interested in the writings of Aleister Crowley and had even purchased Crowley's former home, Boleskine House, on the shores of Loch Ness.
And it's whispered that soon, if we all...
Page's interest in Crowley and other occult figures influenced the song's symbolic language. References to the May Queen, the Piper, and the bustle in the hedgerow create a mystical landscape that borrows from both Celtic mythology and modern magical practice. For many listeners, this was their first exposure to ideas that mainstream Christianity considered dangerous or heretical. The song's structure mirrors an occult ritual, building from quiet meditation to ecstatic revelation. Page's guitar solo in the final section doesn't just represent musical climax, but spiritual transformation, the moment when the seeker achieves union with divine forces. The recording itself became almost ritualistic, with the band spending countless hours perfecting each section's emotional impact.
And a new day will dawn for those.
Plant's lyrics were written in a stream of consciousness style, often while sitting by a fire at Headley Grange, the remote country house where Led Zeppelin recorded. He later described the experience as channeling something beyond his conscious mind, tapping into archetypal images that felt both ancient and immediate.
There's a feeling I get when I look.
What makes this particularly unsettling is how effectively the song disguised these themes. Millions of listeners found spiritual meaning in Plant's words without recognizing their occult origins. The song became a gateway to ideas that many of its fans would have rejected if presented more directly, making it one of popular music's most successful pieces of esoteric propaganda. These songs remind us that the 70s weren't just about peace, love, and good times. Even during an era known for its optimism and cultural experimentation, artists were grappling with darkness, disappointment, and questions that didn't have easy answers. They created music that could work on multiple levels, entertaining casual listeners while rewarding those who dug deeper into their meanings. The decade's musical landscape was shaped by a generation that had lived through the upheavals of the 60s and was trying to make sense of what came next. The idealism of the previous decade had crashed against harsh realities: Vietnam, Watergate, economic uncertainty, and social fragmentation. Musicians responded by creating works that acknowledged this complexity, often hiding their most serious concerns behind accessible melodies and familiar structures. What's remarkable is how many of these artists managed to smuggle profound themes into mainstream consciousness without alienating their audiences. They understood that people were hungry for meaning, but might resist it if presented too directly. By wrapping serious content in appealing packages, they created a body of work that continues to reveal new depths decades after its creation. The enduring popularity of these tracks suggests that audiences have always been hungrier for complexity than the music industry typically assumes. Great songs don't just make us feel good, they make us feel everything, including things we might prefer to avoid. They remind us that beneath every catchy chorus might lurk questions worth pondering, stories worth hearing, and truths worth confronting. If you enjoyed discovering the hidden depths of these classic songs, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations of music history's most fascinating secrets. What other songs from the 70s do you think have darker meanings than they first appear? Let us know in the comments below, and we might feature your suggestions in a future episode.